Good stuff. It's Heiliger. Is that like holy, I think? And Lichtiger is light, just Shabbos full of lights. Yes, so good Shabbos, everybody. It's wonderful to be together on this auspicious day for our Pride Shabbat, our annual Pride Shabbat, which is quite an event this year especially, because we have a special guest with us tonight, Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, joining us live from New York. So it's a late night for you, Rabbi Kleinbaum. I'm so glad you're here. And also I have some words of greeting from Kathy Howard. I just want to share these with you first. Okay, she's an elder in our community, long-time LGBTQ advocate for decades, and has been past president probably once or twice. So she says, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I really wish I could be there with you tonight. You'll never guess where I am. Lesbian comedy in San Francisco. Like-minded people gathered together to share a healing experience. So a little bit like Pride Shabbat, right? Rabbi Moshe had asked me more than once to participate in CJC's Pride Shabbat. Sometimes I can, sometimes I already have a commitment. The best part of that story is that every year this is a thing. Many thanks and much gratitude to the board and Moshe for honoring LGBTQ++ Pride Shabbat, Pride Month, and continuing this meaningful ritual. When I got involved with CJC over 20 years ago, part of the welcoming embrace was up front and center. Spiritual leadership, board membership, and leadership, and plenty of members were queer and very lesbian-centric. My home, my people, my home. Now, even though none of those things are still true, I still feel at home, and I really hope anybody who might be showing up tonight and throughout the year will feel the same. It's up to us, all of us, to reach out and show our rainbow colors. I'm very happy you've come tonight, and I know that you will find this evening enriching. Happy Pride. That's really sweet words from Kathy Howard. I do also want to say just a couple words of introduction for Sharon, Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, and then I'll have a more proper introduction a little bit later. Hopefully you've seen all the publicity for the service and some of the biographical information we've included. To give a proper introduction would probably take me the 15 or 20 minutes that we've already given her to speak. So please, Rabbi Kleinbaum, I hope you can tolerate my introduction. Once a rabbi I was introducing pushed me aside and began her speech. So first, it must be said that it's an incredible honor that she would participate in a Pride service for such a small community as ours. To be honest, either she must owe her brother Paul Kleinbaum a huge favor, or he now owes her a huge favor. Paul's been a CJC member and board member for a few years, and when I came to learn that Sharon was his sister, I knew that one day I would get to meet her. Thank you, Paul, for helping to make this happen. And I want to give you an opportunity to say a few words, if you would, come on.
I'm not going to repeat Sharon's biography. You can read that for yourself. But I thought I would just mention a couple things that are maybe not in her biography. We all know John Lewis's favorite saying about making good trouble, making necessary trouble. Well, Sharon really has taken that to heart in her personal and professional life. She has been an activist for most of her life, and the stuff that you'll read about in her biography grows out, I think, of our family growing up. We grew up in a liberal Jewish household. Our parents were very liberal, and we had exposure to a lot of things that a lot of other kids didn't. But Sharon's activism didn't start when she was an adult. Sharon's activism started when she was 9 or 10 years old, and in the third grade led a campaign to protest the fact that girls could not wear pants to school. You too? And she was successful. Of course, as she grew into adulthood, her activism became a little bit more political and much more focused on worldly issues and national issues. She now, in her retirement, she served as a senior rabbi at Congregation Beit Simchat Torah for 32 years. It was an amazing experience for me to go there. I would go there for high holiday services, which were often held in the Javits Center in New York. If anyone, Javits Convention Center, they would not be unusual for them to get 3,000 or 4,000 people for the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur services. Sharon started an open door policy at CBST. So the high holiday services were open to anybody without charge. So, and they came. But in addition to her professional activities, Sharon really also serves as a really an anchor of our family. There are two more of us siblings, another brother and sister, and Sharon has really maintained a relationship with our children, our children's children now, and almost serves as a gathering point for us all. So for that, we are forever grateful. So with that, Rabbi.
Okay. Thank you. Great.
It's all yours, Sharon.
In 1992, 2 years before I started rabbinical school, Rabbi Kleinbaum became the first rabbi and the first full-time staff person at Congregation Beit Simchat Torah, New York City's then gay and lesbian synagogue. She arrived during the worst of the AIDS crisis, when a lethal combination of viral illness and anti-gay bigotry left the community perpetually caring for its sick and dying, mourning its losses and comforting those left behind. In the 3 decades it spent under Rabbi Kleinbaum's inspired leadership, CBST became the largest LGBTQ synagogue in the world, a powerful and resilient spiritual community of resistance and love. Now, a quarter century into the new millennium, CBST's positive impact can be felt throughout New York City, around the USA, in Israel, and worldwide. Rabbi Kleinbaum is renowned for her thoughtful and provocative sermons, her unquenchable love for sacred texts, Yiddish, and other Jewish cultures. As a progressive Zionist committed to the shared future of Israeli Jews and Palestinians, she strives tirelessly for security, safety, peace, and liberation for all dwellers of Israel and Palestine. In any time of challenge, Rabbi Kleinbaum urges everyone, be more Jewish. For her, being Jewish means exploring the abundance inherent in Jewish identity, and she's helped countless people to do just that. She designed and created a rabbinical internship program that has trained dozens of rabbis, including Rabbi Michael Copeland of San Francisco's Sha'ar Zahav, who was our guest at a Pride service several years ago. Rabbi Kleinbaum was a founding co-chair of Rabbis for Human Rights North America, which later changed its name to Teruah, the Rabbinic Call for Human Rights, an organization I'm very involved in. And her name has appeared multiple years on Newsweek's list of America's 50 most influential rabbis. The BBC named her one of the 100 women of 2024, and the list goes on. But perhaps most importantly, Rabbi Kleinbaum is married to Randy Weingarten, whose background is just as impressive, and has 2 daughters, 1 son-in-law, 2 granddaughters, and many beloved nieces and nephews who have their own fabulous children. So with that, let me welcome Rabbi Kleinbaum, and thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you so much. I just want to stop and check that the sound is working. Can you all hear me? Can I get a... Great, because I know we had a little issue before, so thank you so much. And I'm really thrilled to be with all of you. And anything my big brother Paul asks me to do, I am happy to do. So I'm thrilled that Paul asked me, and I'm only sorry I can't be with you in person. I was there a couple of weeks ago visiting Paul and Michelle, and maybe there'll be a time where I can be there actually on the weekend on a Shabbat that you have services. So I'm thrilled that you're creating this beautiful community. And community doesn't depend on whether or not there are thousands or hundreds of people. It really depends on how each person sees their own responsibility. And that number is a matter of how all of you are with each other. So I'm very moved to be with all of you, and thank you for inviting me. So I'm going to speak for a little bit, and then we're going to have a conversation, right? That's how we're going to do this tonight. And it's obviously a big topic to talk about gay pride in the year of 2026. And I'm going to say a few different things, and then we'll open it up for a conversation with questions, etc. It's really important to remember that, of course, there were gay people long before Stonewall happened in 1969, which began the modern gay rights movement. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But in terms of the United States, there was a very significant gay rights movement here in the 20s. And even in the 20s and the 30s, the teens, the 20s and the 30s, which mirrored what was happening in Europe, which was there was a time of great opening as the Ottoman Empire ended, World War I ended, and there was a tremendous opening of the world. And that's a very, very big topic, actually, because we tend to think of it as just a very, very modern movement and community, and it's not. Although it's modern in the sense that before the 1850s, the 1860s, there was no concept of an identity, even though there was sexual activity that would have been considered homosexual or gay. There wasn't a sense of community. There always have been gay people. One of the ways I love to come into the story of what it means to have a gay rights movement is the wonderful movie, The Wizard of Oz, which I'm sure most of you have seen. And of course, I was just talking to somebody about it. When I was a kid in the 60s, The Wizard of Oz came on once a year on a Friday night. Do you remember that? And you had to watch it that particular Friday night. There was no streaming services or DVDs or any other way to watch something. But that movie we watched every single year whenever it was on. And in the movie, you might be interested to know, the two writers of the movie, Yip Harburg and Harold Arlen, who were two Jewish kids of immigrants who lived in the Lower East Side in Manhattan and grew up knowing each other around Tompkins Square Park. They wrote the lyrics and the book for the movie Wizard of Oz. But of course, The Wizard of Oz was a whole collection of books written decades earlier by Frank Baum. Many, many books. Frank himself, Baum, wrote, and then others wrote after he stopped producing the books. But in the original Wizard of Oz series that Frank Baum wrote, there was no rainbow. There was no song Somewhere Over the Rainbow. You know, we think of that as so iconic to Wizard of Oz. The original didn't have it. I always say it took these two Jewish kids, children of immigrants, to want to understand that the story was missing something. If it didn't understand that this girl, who's based on such a Jewish wistfulness and longing, in the middle of Kansas, which was, of course, if you remember the movie's in black and white while the story is in Kansas, and only transfers into color, which was new technology in 1939, when they leave and they go into Oz. So in Kansas, it's black and white. But in Kansas is where she sings the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which shows this extremely deep truth that you have to be able to have a vision of what's possible, even in the middle of some very difficult, realistic realities that surround you. And that song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, really sums up, I believe, the Jewish longing and the Jewish ability to be oppressed in the middle of oppression, in the middle of discrimination, and still be able to imagine beauty and color and the rainbow wherever you are. And it turns out it also is a very gay phenomenon, the ability to be oppressed, but to imagine the possibility at the same time. Honestly, I think Americans in general, we've lost that muscle. And part of what I think gay pride has to be about this year and in this period of time is reminding ourselves of the muscle of resilience and the possibility of imagination and vision, even when the circumstances that are realistic or empirical are horrible. So Wizard of Oz comes out in 1939. Somewhere Over the Rainbow becomes the iconic song for the gay world, starting in 1939 when that movie came out. It became so attached to the gay world, which was deeply oppressed and very much suffering, but maintained a fantastic sense of humor and a vision. And that becomes key for all of this. That it became the way for the next 50 years. If a gay person wanted to ask if somebody else was gay, they would say, "Are you a friend of Dorothy?" And that question became the way the gay community, and why Dorothy? Because when Judy Garland sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow, she was putting into words and to wistfulness what everybody could feel, which is, it might really be horrible where you are, but the ability to find music and art and imagine color and beauty is exactly the muscle that I believe Jews have had, not so much in America, but in Europe, and the gay community has. In fact, when I used to go to rabbinic conferences, I've kind of stopped doing that, but when in the earliest of years, when I was in rabbinical school in the 80s, there was always in the itinerary for the rabbinical conference, there would be a room set aside for a meeting of Friends of Dorothy. That happened in every profession. It happened in every professional association. And that's up until the 80s it was still being used. Judy Garland died on June 22nd, 1969 in London. Some of you might remember that death. It was a horrible death. And it took several days. She wanted to be buried in the United States, for them to get the body, to have the body released by the British government. And the funeral was June 22nd. The funeral was held on June 27th, Friday, June 27th, at Frank E. Campbell's Upper East Side Funeral Home in Manhattan. It is said that the sobbing and the sadness around her death that the gay community felt on June 27th for her funeral helped to inspire what happened later that same night. On the night of June 27th, going into the Saturday of June 28th, for the first time in New York, by the way, it happened in Los Angeles 2 years earlier at the Black Cat Club in Silver Lake, if anybody knows LA. But in New York City, it happened that there was a bar called the Stonewall Bar, which was a mafia-owned and operated bar. All the gay bars were mafia-owned and operated. And that particular night, the mafia had deals with the police. The police would pay off the police. The police would let them know when a raid was happening. And what the New York City Police Department would do is to have they would go into the bar, arrest everybody, and they would have a photographer, because nobody had cell phones taking pictures, standing in the front of the bar, and as the people were taken out and put into the police vans, photographs would be taken, and then they would be printed in the newspaper the next day. And these mostly men who were arrested in these bars, but not only by any means, could lose their jobs. Often they were married. It was a terror. It was really terror. It was illegal in New York City to serve a gay person an alcoholic drink. It was illegal in New York City to dance with somebody of the same sex. And it was illegal to have more than 3 pieces of clothing of the opposite sex, wearing clothes of the opposite sex. So it was on those 3 grounds the police would arrest people who were in these clubs. But this one night of June 27th, 1969, the group that was in there, and it was a working class bar, and it was mostly drag queens and trans folks and homeless kids. They decided they weren't going to passively allow themselves to be arrested, and they started fighting back. And it was very messy, and it became a massive fight between the gay community and the police, the 6th precinct in New York City. And the way that Stonewall is, if for those of you who've ever been there, there are a lot of different small streets that feed into the main square. So that kind of fed the police couldn't get control of it for many, many hours because people kept coming. And then the next night, thousands more came. And the following night, thousands and thousands of people came. So that night transformed New York City, and the area around where the Stonewall bar is located became the central rallying cry point of standing up for ourselves. Now, of course, things have to happen. You have to have luck also. Why did it become so well known so quickly? First of all, it went over 5 or 6 nights, and it just ended up including thousands of people. But the Village Voice, for those of you who might remember, if you know New York newspapers, it was the kind of progressive paper. The Village Voice had its offices on the same corner that the Stonewall bar was in. And guess what? That helps a lot to have photographers and reporters covering a story that nobody knew was going to happen. The coverage was horrific. It was very disgusting. If you look at the headlines, things like, homosexuals captured in a sting, and they would have these bees buzzing around. Anyway, so that was 1969. The following year, in 1970, a group called the Christopher Street Parade, or the Christopher Street March, because it was on Christopher Street, decided to have a march on the anniversary of Stonewall. And that march took place on the Sunday of the Stonewall weekend. Remember, it started on a Friday night and it went through many, many nights. So that's just happened in 1969. I mean, it's certainly in some of our lifetimes. And from that time, when you would be arrested for dancing with a same-sex partner, we've seen this arc of transformation in these years to the point where the Supreme Court issued decisions giving full and complete federal rights to gay people. Up until that decision, which is called the Lawrence decision, I forgot, it was a Texas, I forgot Lawrence versus who it was. Up until that time, the rights for gay people was entirely based on states. If you lived in a state in which there were protections, you could be protected. If you didn't, not. It was the same thing as it was for African Americans before the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 65 Voting Rights Act. Before 1964, if you were a black person living in Mississippi, you had a totally different set of rules and regulations and laws than if you lived in New York. It was based on which state you were in. Remember when we used to think that state rights were the problems and we needed to go to the federal government to get protections? That was true through the 50s and 60s and 70s, where the federal government inserted itself when states were discriminatory. We're now facing almost the exact opposite situation, where the federal government is the source of problematic laws. The Supreme Court is a place which is eroding laws. I'm sure they're going to get rid of gay marriage and all different, and there have been over 700 laws introduced around the country in 2025 that were anti-gay, lesbian, or anti-trans in particular. Hundreds and hundreds. We haven't seen that. So the question becomes, and then I'm going to stop is that where do we understand where we are? What does pride mean in a time where the attacks have increased? And in some ways, with the evisceration of the Voting Rights Act, we see that things that we assume to be solid transformations in society, we can't assume. But you know what? It's happened before. As I said, in the 20s and 30s in Europe, there was tremendous openness and liberalness towards gay people. And I'll tell you one story, and then I'll stop and open it up for questions. There is a woman by the name of Chava Plachauer, who was a Polish Jew who came to the United States in 1912 as a 20-year-old. In the 20s, she changed her name to Eve Adams. She opened up a lesbian bar and cafe in 1925 in the village on McDougal Street, the first one of its kind. And the police sent in a woman police officer to entrap her and then arrested her for indecency. She was not a citizen because she was an immigrant from Poland, where she ran from Poland because of the economic and political discrimination against Jews. And because she wasn't a citizen, she was deported. She was deported back to Poland. She moved to France because she thought France would be a little bit better in terms of anti-Semitism. Went to Paris. The Nazis invaded and occupied Paris. She moved to the south of France, which was under Italian rule and a little better for Jews at that point. But in 1943, the Nazis occupied southern France, arrested her, sent her to Auschwitz, and she was killed. This week, this Wednesday, is the 100th anniversary of her being arrested for indecency. And the New York gay community is doing a big event. I'm going to be speaking and reciting Mourner's Kaddish. But part of remembering Eve Adams is that we've been here before. We've been in a cycle where things can go well and then they don't go well. We have to develop these muscles of resilience and of resistance. And we have to do it with all of everybody, straight, gay, young, old, everybody. We have to create a world now which understands we're not entitled, but we have to create a world. And I learned what are the things we have to do. I learned it a lot from being the rabbi at CBST during the time of AIDS. 40% of our synagogue died from AIDS. 40%, 40, not 4, but 40% of the synagogue died from AIDS. The AIDS lasted for 16 years before there were any medicines or therapies that could make it possible to live with AIDS. So for 16 years, it was a death sentence. If you got a diagnosis of AIDS, there were a few long-term survivors, but mostly people died. And in that time, that's when I arrived at CBST. CBST had never had a rabbi before. But how do you deal with the fact that I came as a 33-year-old to CBST. I was burying men of my own generation. I wasn't just doing funerals for the parents and grandparents. I was burying my own generation. I mostly did funerals for men in their 30s and 40s, mostly in their 30s and 40s. So how do you react to something like that? Well, there are a few things, and I think they have something to say to us today. No one can do everything, but everyone can do something. The community completely understood that we had a Republican, a Ronald Reagan government, which wouldn't even say the word AIDS, would not help in any way, both using a bully pulpit or in terms of research and development for therapeutics and vaccines. There's still no vaccine. And the Jewish community was hostile. I spent a lot of time in the funeral homes trying to get the funeral homes to deal more respectfully with the bodies of people who came in from AIDS. So it was a time where the community was tremendously under attack and in crisis. So at CBST, we developed a few practices. One is that I think are relevant to today. One, be local. In a time where the federal government is not a source of liberation, focus and focus hard on local town, local city, local state politics. That's the place in which we can have a real impact right now. Secondly, create a lot of small communities of all different kinds. Resist isolation and solitude. As much as we all want to put our heads under the blankets and not listen to another piece of news, do stuff like what you're doing tonight. Have a synagogue community. Make sure you're seeing people and doing things. A knitting circle, a democracy group for any of the elections happening in your area. 3, remember that joy itself is an act of spiritual and political resistance. When you do something to actively create joy, and I don't mean say, okay, now I'm going to feel happy, because everybody's depressed and full of despair. You got to remember, what were things I used to do that would give me pleasure? And do those things, even if you don't feel like it. Even if you don't feel like it. Remember, every time you feel joy, happy, you feel content, it's a defeat to the regime that wants to crush us. So I don't mean empty happiness, and I don't mean drug-induced or alcohol-induced. I mean real, genuine joy, which comes in community, it comes in nature, it comes in art and creativity. The last thing is bimkom she'eno anashim, in a place where there's humanity has disappeared. That's exactly the moment to insist on being human. Don't worry about the people who are acting like inhumane morons. How do you develop your humanity muscles? As a gay community, we took these really seriously. So even though we had death and dying every week, our social lives were around funerals and memorial services. When Shabbat came on Friday nights, we refused to turn the synagogue into a memorial service. We could have had 2 or 3 people die that week. We would say their names before Mourner's Kaddish. We would honor them. We would hold multiple truths at once. But we also knew you need to sing and dance. You need to have great music and love art and enjoy your dogs and cats. And we insisted, so Friday nights were full of joy. Joy that's rooted in sadness, for sure. And we all know what that means. So after Trump was elected this second time, I started an organization called Beacon for Democracy, which I encourage you to consider or to look up, because I took all of those things that I learned from AIDS and from the gay community under oppression and came up with a project that's housed at the Union Theological Seminary that asks people to spend 30 minutes a week visibly in their local communities, holding up signs that reflect their values. So you see, I have one of my signs here, compassion, not cruelty. I love immigrant New York. And the idea is you could have 2 people stand outside every Thursday, 30 minutes. And what we've done by doing this is to do the small things on a local basis, to be able to not be silenced and think that our voices don't matter. They do. And also to have fun doing it. So I want to read to end with a gay pride prayer that Ayelet Cohen, who's now the dean of JTS, but she was an intern at CBST, and she is straight, which I say because we need all of us. There's no such thing as only some people have the wisdom to be able to lead us through. So when I celebrate gay pride, I celebrate everybody who cares about creating a world in which sexual orientation and gender identity is just a natural part of the species. So I want to read you to end, and then we'll open it up. Her Al Hanisim prayer. We thank you, O God, for the miraculous deliverance, for the heroism, for the triumphs in the battles of our ancestors in other days and in our time. In the wake of the civil rights movement, lesbians, gay men, bisexuals, and transgender people began to organize for the dignity and justice that all of us are due as human beings on this earth. Those who profane your name, claiming that they hate us in the name of God, rose up to criminalize us, pathologize us, brutalize us, and erase us. And you, in your great mercy, stood with us in the times of our troubles. You fought alongside us, vindicated us, gave us the courage to stand together, to open our eyes and the eyes of the world around us, to see that the freedom and the right to love belongs to all of your creations. You have given us the strength to witness and to create wonders, to be who we are and to love whom we love, not only in the safety of our homes, but outside in the light of the world, to live as Jews in the embrace of community, to sanctify our unions and celebrate ourselves before each other and before you. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. May we never know shame again. And let us say, Amen. That's in our CBST Siddur. So I can't hear you. There you are. Okay.
Okay. There we go.
Beautiful words, just nice. I see how the thoughts are strung together in a really coherent way, and I'm grateful that we're able to practice some of those ideas here in our little community, that where we are, We have many welcoming congregations here in Half Moon Bay. We're here in one of them, the Holy Family Episcopal Church. Several of their members are here and even assisting with the service tonight. You'll notice the rainbows on their altar. And also we have many, real local heroes in the LGBTQ movement who are, here on the Zoom call tonight, and a few of them here. And also our mayor of Half Moon Bay is here tonight. So we're just really proud. But I want to say that, and I want to ask if you see the amazing comeback of the New York Knicks, if you see that as an example of the resilience in dark times, and the joy and the sense of connection that people can have across all different, backgrounds and persuasions.
Well, somebody said to me today that so you got to turn that sound off. Got it. So somebody said to me that game, how could you not believe in miracles and watch that game, right? I have to confess, I turned it off and went to sleep when there were 29 points. Like I was a non-believer. But yes, it's pretty incredible to be in New York for this. It's quite a celebration of everybody is celebrating.
Questions or comments? I have a microphone here. Would love to involve some of the other members of our community here.
Sure.
Dialogue. Yeah. Yeah, Chip. Just what an amazing career you've had.
Not a question, Rabbi, but I just want to applaud you for the historical context that you gave us, because this is another thing, of course, that they're purposefully trying to erase, is the history, so that people will not know what happened and how people reacted.
Absolutely, this erasure of history. There's a wonderful professor at NYU named Ruth Ben-Ghiat, whose academic specialty is Mussolini and Italian fascism. But she wrote a book called Strong Men, which is a fantastic overview, which does exactly, I'm sorry, I missed your name if you said it, or if maybe you didn't say it.
Sure.
So thank you, because she goes through all the strong, not all, but many of the strong men of the 20th century and the 21st century to show, if you study their histories, how similar their playbooks are. Whether you're talking about Mussolini or Hitler or Modi in India or Orban in Hungary or Erdogan in Turkey, etc., 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 there is so much similarities, but it also gives us some help in understanding what it means to fight against them and what it looks like. And what I keep saying to people is, remember, in the end, Pharaoh does not win. That's the story of Passover. That's the story of our Seder, is that no matter what, it could take a long time, Pharaoh does not win. What are we doing to build for the day after? And history teaches me that question also. So thank you for noticing that. History, what it takes is really, in history, the people who understood there will be a day after, and our job is to not give up or give in, to stay in bed and not be engaged, because we need to be the ones building for the day after.
Thank you. Important message. Yes, Claire and Paul.
Sharon, what gives you hope in these times, given what's going on all around us? Is there anything you see happening locally or nationally that gives you hope?
Paul, it's a great question. I would say that what gives me the perspective, first of all, is to know Pharaoh doesn't win, right? We have to do something to make that happen. And I don't worry so much about the timing, because I think that our job is to make sure there's something that's happening. I've been really inspired by watching what's happening on local levels. We are seeing people coming out of the woodwork. I mean, really out of the woodwork. At the Beacon for Democracy, we have a woman who's 105 years old in Florida. She has never gone to a protest in her life. She goes out every Thursday in her wheelchair. She has her aide wheel her out of her apartment, so she's outside holding up a sign. Her daughter tells me she wakes up most mornings saying, "Is it Thursday?" Like, where has that happened before? And she's lived through a lot of terrible times, but never was part of a protest. So I think we're seeing a kind of a participation, and not just in those kind of obvious ways. I'll tell you, you've heard a lot of what's happening about the trans stuff. Last week, I went to see, there's a trans clinic that a whole bunch of doctors in New York have started. This is happening all over the country, by the way. It's staying under the radar so it doesn't get attacked by Trump's henchmen. But New York is now, you can't go into a hospital now. Most of the hospitals in New York will not do gender-affirming care for teenagers or for young people under 19. And by the way, most of that care are hormones. Nobody does surgery at the young age. It's all hormones. So a group of people, mostly doctors and donors, have gotten together to create a clinic that's private, so Trump can't threaten to remove Medicaid or Medicaid, which would be really that's the weapon that Trump is using for both abortion and trans care in hospitals. If you do abortions or you do trans health care, Trump is saying there he's going to pull out Medicaid. For a New York City urban hospital to lose Medicaid will kill it will kill the hospital. There won't be a hospital for the public hospitals. So this is so creative. So a group of doctors have created a clinic because a poor hospital in Elmhurst, Queens can't afford to not serve its members. The number of trans people who go to Elmhurst Hospital for care is like 0.01 of its population. So a group of doctors have created a private clinic that anybody could go to and receive that kind of counseling and care up until the age of 19, because the hospitals take over at 19. So I love that. I mean, how creative is that? Like, that's what we have to be doing, is we have to solve the conditions in which we live to the best extent we can with the limited resources we have. And that includes, so like the Thursday Beacon groups, people are going out to pizza together afterwards. They haven't even met their own neighbors. They're taking care of each other and then getting involved in local levels. So Paul, I would say it's watching how many people are just going outside of their comfort zone a little bit. And you all have to remember this. No one can do everything, but everyone can do something. And therefore, it's our job, it's our work as Jews to figure out what the something is. And that something will be different for everybody. And the something matters less than that there is a something. And then if you feel like, okay, I'm doing my something and other people are doing their somethings, then it's going to matter. But I think, and I think that the cruelty, the violence, the viciousness, the evil that we're surrounded with is eating away at our souls. So we have to do stuff to inflate our souls and to feed them so that we are not crushed by the cruelty. I mean, all you have to do is see a picture of the White House, right? And you just want to, with that fighting thing for his birthday. What do you know what I'm talking about? I forgot what it's called. I can't hear you, Rabbi.
Okay, Claire has a question or comment here.
I had a lot of feelings listening to you. I don't know if you can hear me. You can hear me? Yeah, okay. I particularly wanted to talk about what you talked about AIDS. I'm a physician. I as soon as I got out of training, I was in the middle of the AIDS crisis. And I probably had 100 patients that died. I'm a psychiatrist. And later on, more recently, I worked at the county hospital at their AIDS clinic, which now is, everybody's treated, everybody's AIDS is controlled. It's a whole different illness than it used to be. But what I thought about, when I was thinking about all of this and feeling about it, is there used to be in San Francisco, and I think in New York, signs on the buses in every place, be here for the cure. And the people that I saw at the county clinic most recently are here for the cure. But the people that were reading those things on the buses in the 80s are not here, most of them. And it was very much a over the rainbow kind of thing. that there will be a cure someday, and if we can, we'll still be here. And I think that's what's going on for all of us right now. Is we're looking for what the cure is for what's going on with our world right now, and we're not sure where it is. It's somewhere over the rainbow, and we still want to be here for it. And all of that came to me when I was listening to you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You know, and I think we can all think about ancestors that we've had in our own families who went through terrible, terrible suffering so that we would be alive, living our lives today. And I always, and Paul, and this goes back a little bit to that hope point, I feel like we all have an obligation. They were suffered so much. Believe me, I'm not sure I could do what my grandparents did to come to this country. I'm not sure I have that inside of me, but they did it somehow. So it feels even more so like, who am I to say this is too hard, right? It's not, and I feel that also for the whole piece of what it means about being gay. It's like, all right, so it was hard, and we had to really transform a lot of people, but it happens, very small steps at a time. There's a famous story in the Talmud about Choni, the carob tree planter. It's a great story. It fits into this, is that he's seen planting a carob tree, and he's an old man. And people say to him, why are you planting a carob tree? Don't you know it takes 70 years for the tree to bear fruit? And he says, well, somebody planted a tree long before I was born that I can eat the fruit of their tree. So now I have to plant the trees for people who are going to come after me. We're a little too used to thinking about, okay, if I get involved in politics, it's going to change tomorrow and I will benefit. I don't even know what getting involved in politics means, but as a gay person, I've seen so much change, and we have to maintain our ballast, our stability, and recognize that the stuff we're doing might not be for my generation. It might not be for people that I'm going to live to see something like the cure for AIDS. But for sure, if I don't work on it, it's not going to, if we all just gave up, it's never going to happen. And some of what we have to be doing is for another generation. And some cultures are much more used to thinking that. Native American cultures think a lot about doing things you calculate 7 generations. And I think that's what we have to do. I feel very strongly about that.
Thank you. Can you hear me now? Okay. I want to thank you, and I know it's late there, so we'll let you go, but I hope this is the beginning of an ongoing relationship. We look forward to seeing you when you're here to visit Paul one day, and maybe we'll come and visit CBST one day when somebody here is in New York. So,
and I'm so happy to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's so. This is what gives me hope.
Yeah.
Getting to
talk to you like this. Thank you.
amen to that.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Thank you.